So here at Go Flatout PH, we've already been reviewing a lot of electric vehicles. And so therefore, you're probably already considering owning your first EV, especially if that's the reason why you're watching this video. And so with that in mind, here are 5 compelling reasons on why an electric car could be the perfect vehicle for you. So, over the past few years, we've witnessed electric cars to basically lower their prices nearly to a point that it's already matching most of today's gas-powered vehicles. As the EV market gets even more competitive, along with of course greater economies of scale, electric vehicle prices over the years have actually been coming down. Especially this year in 2024, we now have a lot more EV options that are priced under ₱1,000,000. So one of those options include the VinFast VF5 and the VinFast VF3. And in the case of this VinFast VF5, you can get this car for a little under ₱1,000,000 when you go for the battery subscription service. So before we get to the battery subscription service part, let's first talk about what makes an EV a lot cheaper to maintain. So you have to remember that with an EV kasi, you don't have to worry about stuff like engine oil, spark plugs, timing chains and belts, because yun nga, EVs are a lot more mechanically simple, especially when it comes to vehicle maintenance. One of those components requiring far less maintenance are the car's disc brakes and brake pads. This is all thanks to an EV or a hybrid's regenerative braking, which, as you've probably heard in all our hybrid and electric car reviews, charges the car's battery. Now, regenerative braking isn't actually another component on top of a hybrid or electric car's disc brakes. Instead, it's actually the electric motor running in reverse, thus turning into a generator that charges the battery and also slows the car down. The disc brakes, therefore, are only used when you need more stopping power as you step deeper into the brake pedal. Now, in a gas-powered car, whenever you step on the brakes, that's basically wasted kinetic energy that's simply dissipated into just heat. And you also have to remember that in terms of running costs, if you're going to be doing home charging at least, here's how much it costs to charge the VinFast VF5 with today's Meralco rates. You also have to remember that in terms of running costs, that's going to be even cheaper if your house has a solar panel, because when you hook up your charger to a solar panel, well, that's the best case scenario, isn't it? Because at that point, you practically have free energy coming from the sun. Now, on the topic of running costs pa rin, you're probably worried about an EV's battery. Well, sa totoo lang, in terms of their battery life, you have absolutely nothing to worry about, especially with electric cars these days and their advanced battery thermal management systems, which contribute significantly to a vehicle's battery life. And also, based na rin on this study, especially with millions of EVs already sold in other countries, well, you pretty much have nothing to worry about because they've been pretty much proven already to pretty much last the life of the vehicle itself. Even then, if you're still worried about that part, well, that's where VinFast's battery subscription service comes in, which lowers their car's initial purchase price. And that's basically the brand's commitment, along with their guarantee that EV batteries have come a long way, especially when it comes to the longevity of these things. Well, with an electric car, especially if performance is what you're after, electric cars are practically known for their copious amounts of torque. And most of the time pa nga, that torque is delivered in an instant. And so therefore, if you want to overtake a slower car in front of you, well, yeah, that's actually pretty fun, isn't it? And then of course, on the topic of performance, you have to remember that automakers over the past decades have been doing their best to isolate the internal combustion engine. And so, with basically the engine taken away, that's gonna be one less major noise and vibration source for you to isolate inside the vehicle. And that's exactly the reason why, especially for luxury cars, going electric is pretty much a natural and refined evolution. Of course, with an electric car, you're probably gonna be concerned about charging. Well, you have to remember that now in 2024, there's a lot more charging stations across the Philippines compared to when it was just a few years ago. In fact, in Metro Manila, there are already hundreds of charging stations all over the city. And if you plan to go out of town, particularly to places like Baguio, Clark, Subic, Tagaytay, or even Batangas, you have to also remember that even in those places, charging stations are already pretty diverse. And in fact, the highways on the way to these places now have DC fast chargers. So even with charging speeds, DC fast chargers are actually more than enough to get you back quickly on the road. You also have to remember that electric vehicles these days now have much longer driving ranges. So before, electric cars tend to have very short ranges, but these days, a lot of electric cars sa totoo lang are able to match the range of their gas-powered counterparts. And sa totoo lang, if you're part of the average Filipino driver who only drives this much per day, and especially if you're able to charge at your home at night, well, based on this figure, a lot of electric vehicles these days are able to meet your driving range needs. And that is exactly why the VinFast VF5 is an affordable EV that's worth considering. So if you're gonna be going for the battery subscription service, the VinFast VF5 will only cost a little under ₱1,000,000 pesos. And yes, the EV is affordable, but if you're gonna see the way it looks, it's actually a reasonably stylish car. So you have here the VinFast grille, the typical V-shaped motif, which gives this front end a very striking look. So you also have your halogen headlights along with reasonably stylish alloy wheels. Then if you're gonna move towards the side here, you're gonna be seeing nice creases here, very stylish window line here, especially in the car C-pillar. And then moving towards the back, you're gonna see a full width, or at least an effect of a full width taillight, along with, of course, the signature VinFast logo. So it's quite a rugged car in terms of the way it looks, with its chunky body cladding and these stylish wheels. So it's also worth mentioning, by the way, that the car is raised up a bit compared to your conventional hatchback, and so therefore, this is actually a crossover SUV. And so let's now explore naman ngayon what's inside here in the VinFast VF5. Now here inside the VinFast VF5, it's reasonably stylish as well. And as with a lot of cars these days, it's also quite packed with a lot of tech. So you have your 2 screens for your digital gauge cluster, along with, of course, your main infotainment screen. The screen's actually reasonably sharp, it's also very responsive to your touch inputs, and the interface actually looks quite elegant, along with being highly functional. So this car comes with smartphone mirroring features, along with, of course, checking your range status, and other important vehicle metrics. You also have your synthetic leather upholstery, which actually feels pretty nice, along with a rotary gear shifter. You also have plenty of charge ports here, like a USB charging port up front, along with also another USB charge port for the rear passengers. Speaking of the rear seats, by the way, as you're gonna see then, there's a reasonable amount of space for 3 adults there at the back, along with a pretty good space back there in the trunk. And then also worth mentioning in terms of the advanced safety features, because yes, for its price point, this car comes with advanced driver assistance systems, which comes in the form of blind spot warning, along with rear cross traffic alert. So it's a pretty sophisticated car in terms of the safety features, and this comes on top of the usual reverse camera, along with their plethora of airbags surrounding the vehicle. So it's a pretty value-packed car, itong VinFast VF5, and if you're planning to own your first EV, or at least have a taste of owning an electric vehicle at, of course, an affordable price point, well, the VinFast VF5 serves as a compelling entry point into the world of EV ownership.
Yeah.